This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. Like many of you, I'm being sustained on this Monday by British tea. Here's what we got for y'all. As the trial of former police officer Derek Chauvin gets underway, we spoke to the little brother of the man he's accused of killing. Plus, today is International Women's Day, and as a way to celebrate, a few programs are encouraging girls around the world to tell their own stories. But first, here's what you need to know right now. The CDC reports a little over 9% of the US population has been fully vaccinated. That may not sound like much, but that's more than 30 million people. And good news for y'all, the CDC says vaccinated folks can safely kick it with some people indoors, but nothing too wild though.
CDC recommends that fully vaccinated people can visit with other fully vaccinated people in small gatherings indoors without wearing masks or physical distancing.
If someone is unvaccinated and at low risk of getting COVID, the CDC says it's also okay to hang with them indoors just as long as you're fully vaccinated. As long as they're not showing symptoms, those fully vaccinated folks are also good to skip quarantine and testing even if they're exposed to someone with the virus. By the way, the CDC considers you fully vaccinated only if it's been at least 2 weeks since you've gotten the second dose of your Moderna or Pfizer shot, or the first and only dose of that Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Keep in mind, the CDC still advises that everyone should still wear a mask and keep social distancing in public and when visiting with people who are from multiple households, vaccinated or not. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's much-anticipated Oprah interview sent shockwaves across the Atlantic, airing in the US Sunday and in the UK Monday. One of the biggest bombshells, some insensitive racial questions from unnamed royals.
Also, concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
What?
And
who is having that conversation with you? What?
Yeah, that was our reaction too, Oprah. Throughout the 2-hour interview, Meghan accused the royal family and its staff of unfair treatment, denying Harry and Meghan a security detail, and ignoring Meghan's pleas for mental health counseling out of concerns it would reflect too poorly on the crown. Meghan and Harry did make a distinction between the institution and staff of the monarchy, which the couple criticized, and the Queen herself. More than 17 million Americans tuned in to watch the 2-hour special on CBS, which reportedly paid Oprah and her production company more than $7 million to distribute. Some other tea spilled. Meghan and Harry say they're expecting a girl later this year, and that Harry has, in fact, watched some of Netflix's The Crown, the big-budget drama series about his own family, which probably makes for some weird binge watching for him. The jury selection in the murder trial against former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin paused for at least a day. Chauvin is facing second-degree murder and manslaughter charges for the death of George Floyd. Prosecutors say Chauvin's knee was on Floyd's neck for 9 minutes. Cell phone video, now seen across the world, captured Floyd's last moments. Chauvin has pleaded not guilty to the charges. The trial was paused as the judge considers an additional third-degree murder charge that was previously dismissed. Floyd's death was a catalyst for the racial justice protests and calls for police reform we saw last summer. On Sunday night, hundreds took part in a peaceful march in Minneapolis demanding justice for Floyd. When jury selection does resume, it could take up to 3 weeks to seat the jurors. It's been about 10 months since George Floyd's death, and in that time, Floyd's younger brother has fought for justice and accountability. In a few weeks, the former police officer who's facing charges for his brother's death will stand trial. Newsy's Jamal Andrus spoke to Floyd's brother about his feelings around the upcoming trial and the push for police reform.
It's been a whirlwind of a year for Phalonis Floyd.
I was a truck driver before all of this. And just like when you're driving, you keep on trucking, I'm gonna keep on fighting for justice the same way.
Floyd has testified on Capitol Hill, spoken to both the outgoing and incoming presidents, and led a moment of silence at the Democratic National Convention, all in the name of justice for his big brother.
And when this moment ends, let's make sure we never stop saying their names.
But in a matter of weeks, justice for George Floyd will be out of Phalonis' hands. Opening statements in the murder trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin start this month.
I'm optimistic about it. The world's seen the video. He had a smirk on his face. You seen the video. He was smirking, had a smirk on his face while he was torturing my brother to death.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that always comes with these trials, and I've covered a few of them, is unfortunately disparaging the victim. You know, there's going to be a lot of talk of criminal records and whatever drug history a person might have. Is that something that you've thought about? Are you ready for that?
I'm okay with it. He cooperated. He did everything that you would want someone to do. As an officer, he didn't fight him, he didn't push him, he didn't shove him, he didn't do anything like that. He had fear. You know, that's what he had, fear.
Felonious Floyd told me that he has faith that a jury will convict former officer Derek Chauvin, but history is not in his favor. According to a Bowling Green State University database, between 2005 and March 2020, 110 police officers nationwide have been charged with murder or manslaughter for an on-duty shooting. Less than half were convicted. As a reminder, more than 5,000 people have been shot and killed by police since 2015.
The use of force by Mattingly and Cosgrove was justified to protect themselves.
Since George Floyd's death, the officers who shot Breonna Taylor, Daniel Prude, and Jacob Blake have all avoided criminal charges.
That was somebody's son, that was somebody's daughter. They were killed. Innocent people that were killed. And nobody came to their aid or anything like that. So I think about Eric Garner, because he had passed away the same way my brother did. He couldn't breathe just like my brother couldn't breathe.
Last week, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. The expansive police reform bill, among other things, bans chokeholds and no-knock warrants at the federal level and overhauls the qualified immunity legal protections for police officers. Now the bill moves on to the Senate, where it faces an uphill battle despite Democratic control. But Felonious Floyd believes it shouldn't have taken this long for lawmakers to get serious about police misconduct.
The fact that it sat on someone's desk collecting dust, you know, after something, a tragedy that we had. This was not a local thing, this is a global thing. The leaders need to look and see what's going on and understand that, hey, we have to fulfill this. We have to do the right thing.
Derek Chauvin's trial is set to begin March 29th. Felonious Floyd and his family plan to be there. Jamal Andrus, Newsy.
We're going to take a quick break. When you're back, we're going to pander to the IT aliens who play video games. I didn't plan on mentioning Rockville, Maryland on today's show, especially since so much is happening elsewhere in the world. But when a popular video game publisher based in Rockville changes hands because of 7.5 Billy, you gotta shout them out. We're stepping into the world of tech and gaming with one of our favorite segments, Next Level Speedrun, starting with this. A tech and gaming giant joining forces as Microsoft gets the go-ahead from regulators to proceed with its planned buyout of major game developer Bethesda Softworks. Both EU and US antitrust officials have now approved the $7.5 billion deal from Microsoft to purchase ZeniMax Media, Bethesda's parent company. The deal gives Microsoft access to a roster of big names in gaming, including Fallout, Skyrim, Doom, and Wolfenstein. The deal will allow Microsoft to get first pick on how Bethesda distributes the games they make, in particular, adding Bethesda games to Microsoft's Game Pass subscription service could really boost subscriber numbers. Microsoft expects the deal to wrap up in late 2021 and says it will still honor Bethesda's existing distribution deals with its rival console maker, Sony. Nintendo's popular Switch console turned 4 years old last week, and the company is reportedly thinking about an upgrade. A report from Bloomberg claims Nintendo is ramping up production on an upgraded version of the Switch to be released later this year. The new device will still support both television and handheld play, but the handheld mode will supposedly have a wider 7-inch OLED display screen. The company's president has indicated in interviews that the Switch is still in the middle of its lifespan. It's likely Nintendo's planning a more powerful version of the Switch rather than a whole new console. Nothing's been made official yet, but a Switch upgrade would help Nintendo keep pace with Microsoft and Sony, who both debuted more powerful versions of their consoles last year. Controversium Repello. The lead designer of the new Harry Potter game is resigning over community backlash to views he expressed online. Hogwarts Legacy designer Troy Levitt stepped down after his personal YouTube channel, which featured anti-feminist videos, was brought to light last month. Levitt said on Twitter he still has a good relationship with the game studio. The entire Harry Potter franchise is already kind of a contentious topic these days, thanks to creator J.K. Rowling's comments on the transgender community. Rowling isn't directly involved with the Hogwarts Legacy development, but will still earn royalties on the game's sales whenever it launches. The game itself is supposed to be an action game set at the magical school Hogwarts during the 1800s. It was supposed to come out this year, but got bumped to 2022 in January. March 8th is International Women's Day, and as a way to celebrate, some global storytelling initiatives are encouraging girls to tell their own stories. Newsy's Casey Mendoza has more.
International Women's Day celebrates equality and the achievements of women around the world. But beyond the changemakers and headliners, everyday girls are getting platforms to talk about their everyday lives.
We're all used to finding the girl whose story represents a headliner statistic, and I want to get away from that and just let girls tell their own stories and tell us what it is to be them.
Journalist Masuma Ahuja is the writer behind Girlhood, a book that tells the real stories of 30 teen girls from 27 different countries in their own words. The stories are like diary entries, covering topics like school, friendship, and growing up. And Ahuja hopes readers learn how cultures are different and similar to theirs.
There's always like points of commonality that are constantly surprising in this project, and that's what I love about all of the universal, like giving normal people space to tell their stories projects.
Girlhood has since expanded into a digital media organization for girls around the world, similar to past projects from UNESCO, the International Storytelling Center, and Girl Rising.
My story. My story. My story. This is our story.
The Girl Rising Storytelling Challenge was held during last year's International Day of the Girl to highlight new narratives to build a more accurate, tolerant, and inclusive picture of our world. For this year's International Women's Day, Ahuja hopes more people will continue keeping the perspective in mind.
Think about how you're going to change the stories you consume throughout the years and bring more girls' and women's voices into your media consumption and into your understanding of the world. Don't just do it today, but do it every day.
Casey Mendoza, Newsy, Chicago.
As we continue fighting this pandemic, faith leaders in many disproportionately affected communities have the power to build acceptance or distrust in COVID vaccines. Since the US vaccine rollout in December, more than 17% of the population has received at least one dose of available vaccines. Communities across the country have mobilized to get people vaccinated, including faith communities. Newsy's Amber Strong looks into how messages from faith leaders can build or destroy vaccine acceptance.
On a rainy day in Washington, Pastor Michael KELSEY Sr. is here at his Northeast DC church, along with more than 200 Washingtonians and a mobile vaccination clinic set up in the church parking lot.
We're seeing numbers increase. We're seeing inhibition and hesitation decrease. And to God be the glory.
It's the second of 4 events being held here, but making the choice to host vaccination clinics didn't come easily.
Do you feel a weight as a pastor that you are telling them in a way that this vaccine is safe?
I knew that I would be taking on some responsibility just as a leader in the community. And that is a burden. Then I'm also quick to tell them, now I can't make your decision for you. I still respect your decision, whatever it is.
Lack of trust was a big factor in vaccine hesitancy at the start of the rollout, but the numbers have improved, particularly among older Black people.
About 4 in 10 Black adults now say they've either gotten vaccinated or want to get vaccinated as soon as possible.
Early on, government officials recognized faith leaders could move the trust needle.
You are trusted. You are trusted so much more than the outside non-brown Black world.
The process of vaccinating is underway in Maryland.
They weren't alone. Drugstore chain Walgreens is joining the COVID-19 church vaccination effort with a faith-based event this month. something they've done before with flu shots.
We partner with churches and faith leaders to come out to where the people are to get them their vaccines.
But there are complications in the faith leader vaccination matchmaker effort. The state of Florida, for example, has vaccinated more than 46,000 at churches and Jewish centers since January.
I've been praying and asking God for a cure, so this is his way to answer that.
But as Scripps News previously reported, that program has been riddled with accusations of favoritism based on connections, not data.
It would be disingenuous to say that politics and who's who is not a part of it.
As much as faith leaders can help boost vaccine acceptance, they can also help take it away. The Nation of Islam's mistrust of the government has led them to reject the vaccine. The Archdiocese of New Orleans objects to vaccines developed with abortion-derived cell lines. Those two alone have an audience of more than 500,000 people. Some evangelical Christians and Orthodox Jews are also anti-vaccination. There's another obstacle. Black millennials and Gen Z are less connected to Black churches than baby boomers. And according to a Kaiser Family Foundation poll, they also lead their elders in vaccine rejection, with 20% of those ages 18 to 49 saying they definitely won't get the vaccine, compared to about 2% of Black seniors over the age of 65. So while faith leaders have been instrumental in driving trust among some groups, it may take alternate messengers to reach others. Now, according to that Kaiser study, sometimes the best messengers are friends and family members who've been vaccinated. So the more people who have been vaccinated, the more people around them who will want the vaccine. Amber Strong, Newsy.
Signing up for COVID vaccine appointments has been tough for many people, and crowdsourcing tactics online and social media to solidify appointments is something we're seeing all over the country. National reporter Usher Qureshi shows us how one young man's resolve to get his grandparents vaccinated turned into a much larger mission.
Former middle school math teacher Michelle Cruz, eligible for the vaccine, says getting an appointment on her own was not easy.
I'd look in the morning, I'd look a couple hours later, and I was getting nothing.
Until she logged onto a site that simplified it all.
Very all-encompassing and easy to use.
Locations, availability, and eligibility all in one place.
I went onto the website, and then within about, 10 minutes or something, I think I had an appointment.
It turns out that website was created by 13-year-old Eli Kustin.
I group it by county, and for some locations, I have volunteers updating the data, and then for other locations, I have figured out how to automate it.
Eli began by helping his grandparents get appointments.
Eli started getting on the computer and refreshing and looking, and he pretty quickly found openings for them. And then they called him back a few minutes later and said a friend had an appointment that had just gotten canceled, and could they help her?
There have been times where they've disappeared before I could book them, especially one-offs. I mean, you just have to type very, very, very fast.
After securing appointments for some 24 acquaintances and friends of friends in various states, he decided the aggregation website could expand his reach and help people who didn't know him.
Eli would tell you, you have to have 10 windows open and constantly be refreshing. If you're an essential worker, if you're a teacher, you can't be doing that all day.
It's already gotten tens of thousands of visitors and helped people like Michelle Cruz, who recently got her first shot.
I was amazed and just pleased that such a young person used his abilities and his initiative to help out other people.
The pair met for the first time the day after her appointment.
Oh, hi.
She's now become a volunteer helping Eli with his work.
Thank you so much.
All locations that are offering it have the data, but they don't all make it easy to access, which is what I've been trying to aggregate. But I've come into issues where it is very, very hard to actually get this data.
He's looking to expand his site and even added Spanish translations this week. Eli says he'd also like to see a federally administered national website to ensure equitable access for all.
We need to get the vaccines into people's arms, to everyone's arms, no matter where they live, who they are. We need to get people who want the vaccine the vaccine.
In Evanston, Illinois, I'm Usher Qureshi.
If you haven't done so already, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag NewsyInTheLoop. Go ahead, use it, because right now it looks like I'm trying to make fetch happen. At a recent Capitol insurrection hearing, a senior DHS official testified that a January 5th intelligence memo stating nothing significant to report couldn't be found. Well, Newsy's Sasha Ingber obtained that report and explores why analysts missed the threat.
a question lingering since January 6th. What went wrong in the days leading up to the Capitol insurrection?
They're getting into the Capitol tonight.
Police said they received just one email warning from the FBI.
I would think that something of that nature would rise to the level of more than just an email.
The evening before the attack. But Newsy has learned there was, in fact, another communication from the Intelligence Division of the Department of Homeland Security. Only this one completely missed the threat, and a top DHS official cast doubt on its existence in a recent Senate hearing.
We have heard of that report that we supposedly sent out that said nothing significant to report, and we cannot locate that. So I have no idea where that notion came from.
Will you follow up with us on that report, see if you can find it or where we got that impression?
We've looked, ma'am, for a while.
Well, here's the communication which Newsy obtained, clearly stating nothing significant to report. So how did the Department of Homeland Security's intelligence unit miss all the signs before the deadly insurrection? We spoke with current and former DHS officials to try to find out.
So the current Emerging Threat Center is the watch and warning unit of the department's Intelligence and Analysis Office.
One of its main tasks, monitoring social media to gather information on potential domestic violence. But that changed last summer after protests in Portland. The office was accused of compiling intelligence reports on U.S. journalists covering the unrest.
The question has been, can and should the government review such information in order to discern whether somebody might be plotting an attack?
Newsy obtained intelligence reports on Americans, but after Portland, the reports often shifted to foreign groups. In other words, DHS took an eye off of domestic terrorism. The day rioters stormed the Capitol, the center was looking at Iranian hackers and Hezbollah. But some national security leaders say anything Americans share on social media is fair game.
You know, open source intelligence is incredibly important to our ability to know what the hell's going on. And that doesn't violate any rights. That just is being smart.
Even if analysts had warnings to provide, former Homeland Security officials say they likely would have held them back. They had learned after the election to be cautious reporting anything that could be seen as critical to Trump and his supporters.
Whether it's the FBI, whether it's DHS, whether it's the intelligence agencies, when the President of the United States is saying kind things about extremist groups, everybody knows that they had better be careful.
More people have been killed by domestic violent extremists than foreign terrorists in recent years. Experts say January 6th marked the start of a new era.
The result is we have to go to war against domestic terrorism.
From Washington, Sasha Ingber, Newsy.
That's it for us, gang. As always, thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow for more In the Loop. Same time, same place. Top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.